Thank you everybody for coming to this little gathering for Maria Gianferrari and Felicita Sala. This is the Toadstool and Keene hosting. And for the event for their new book, Be a Tree. Maria Gianferrari has always loved trees. She has climbed fig trees in Italy, stood under stately coastal woodwoods and twisted Tory pines, and marveled at mitten-shaped sassafras leaves, colorful coral trees, and sawtooth oak acorn nests. She lives with her family in a house encircled by trees, one of which is a spruce planted in memory of her beloved dog, Becca. And then Felicita Sala is a self-taught illustrator. She has illustrated several picture books, including the award-winning She Made a Monster, How Mary Shelley Created Frankenstein by Lynn Fulton, and The Hideout by Susanna Mattiangeli, as well as her own book of recipes for children, What's Cooking at 10 Garden Street. She grew up between Italy and Australia and now lives in Rome with her family. And go ahead and take it away.
I guess I'll just give a short introduction, and then if you want to give one, Felicia, and then I'll just talk about the inspiration behind the book, and Felicia is going to talk about the art. So I'm Maria. Most of you guys know me. I'm a picture book author. Most of my picture books that are fiction star dog main characters because I love dogs. And the nonfiction books are about creatures in the natural world. And I live in Worcester, Massachusetts now, but I grew up in Keene. And so I used to frequent the Toadstool way back when. Yeah, and that's it. I live here with my husband, Nico, who's a scientist, and our daughter, who's in college, and our dog.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Good to see you. I'm Felicita, and I'm here in my house in Rome. I live in Italy. And I was the illustrator for this book, which was a real honor to make. When I read the text, I just fell in love with the story straight away. It was just such a beautiful way of presenting like a non-fiction subject. I usually find non-fiction subjects a bit boring sometimes for kids, especially, but this one was just such a poetic text. And straight away I had, and I mean, you ask any illustrator, most of them will tell you they love drawing trees. And that's my daughter in the background with her friend. So there's going to be a little bit of background noise. Hope you don't mind. And I grew up in Australia, so I grew up between Rome and Australia, so I have a very particular relationship to particular kinds of trees which remind me of those two places. So when I'm far away from there, I seek eucalyptus trees, and there's a few eucalyptus present in this book because I've been missing my family back in Australia quite a lot. So yeah, that's me. So that's what I do. And if you want to ask me questions about particular things about the book, and I also have a little video tutorial for, there's a few kids there I see, but I think maybe we'll put them up on the website so you can see them later as well. And that's it from me.
Okay, so I'm going to try to share my screen, which is always a challenge. So let's see here. Can you guys see that? Everybody wave your hands if you can see it. Okay, looks like most people can see it. So this is our book, Be a Tree, written by me, illustrated by Felicita. And I have family tuning in from Germany, so willkommen, maybe some people from Italian, benvenuti, and all of the different places we come from and all of our languages are kind of like different trees in a forest, I think. And the most successful forests are the ones that are biodiverse with multiple species, and I feel that's the same way about, people too. So let's see. My slides are not advancing, so let me just try one thing here. Let's see if, oh, it's not working. There we go. So I just wanted to start out by saying thank you because it takes so many different people to make a picture book like Metropolis. So first I want to thank Felicita for her gorgeous art and her creative vision for the book. You're going to, if you haven't already seen the book, you're going to fall in love with the illustrations. I want to thank our agents, Joan Paquette and Kirsten Call, for bringing us together for this project. Team Tree at Abrams Books for young readers, Emma Ledbetter, Sarah Spruill, Hallie Patterson, Jade Rector, and the Foreign Rights team, as well as my critique partners, which I know some of you guys are here. Andrea Wang, who is the author of this beautiful book, Watercress. If you haven't seen it, go get it. You'll fall in love with it. It's very beautiful and heartfelt. Lisa Robinson, Lois Sepabon, Sherry Dillard, and Abby Aguirre. So I'm really delighted because our book, this is the first book of mine that's being translated into multiple languages, and I know it's because of Felicita's beautiful art. So the Italian version, Come un albero, came out at the beginning of April. And if you see the little red sticker in the top, that's because I'm going to brag about Felicita. She won this very important award called the Premio Anderson, which is, I guess, Felicita, correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably kind of like the Caldecott in the US, right?
Yeah, it's well, it's not, because the Caldecott, I think, is for a particular book that wins the medal. And this is, I suppose it's the most prestigious prize in Italy for illustrator. They have it for illustrator, best writer, and then best books in various sections. And I won it as best illustrator in Italy, which was extremely shocking to me because I've been working pretty much only with the American market, and I didn't really think that they knew me here, even if I live here. So I was quite surprised to get the call. Yeah, so it was quite an honor.
Yes, and it's for like I guess the difference is, like you said, the Caldecott is usually for one book, and this is for your body of work that you've created thus far. So that's what the little red sticker is for. And so it's going to be translated into German, which my German family is very excited about, Russian, Greek, Spanish, and as part of Spanish writes Catalan and Basque, which is pretty cool, Chinese, Portuguese, Turkish, French, Korean, and Dutch. So this is my dog, appropriately named Maple. She's a rescue dog, and we call her our autumn gift because we adopted her from Second Chance Animal Rescue in November. And I thought I would tell you a little bit about the inspiration behind the book. So I have a kinship with trees, and I've always felt connected to them. I climbed a lot of trees and was a nature girl at heart and still am. And so this is a picture of me taken on a trip to Redwood National Park about 10 years ago. You can see how enormous these redwoods are. It was just really, I was just in awe being in the presence of these really ancient beings. And then red bud trees. This is a picture of one in my neighborhood where I used to live in Virginia, and I was just amazed about, look at the flowers growing out of the side of the trunk. I found out there's a name for that. It's called cauliflory. And of course, as a writer and a collector of words, I was very excited to learn this new word. And it sort of also looks like cauliflower, which I think is kind of fun. And this is my previous rescue dog, Becca, who we lost in November 2019. I still really miss her very much. I'm showing you this picture of her when she was around 1. She almost made it to 14. And our daughter, Anya, who is 6 in this photo, who's now 19 and would be appalled if I showed you a current picture of her. But I call this the best friends photo. And one of the reasons I wanted to show it is because part of the inspiration behind this book was, while living in Virginia, I was getting really depressed about all the trees that were being felled right and left for these developments when Becca and I would be taking walks. And so I had that kind of in the back of my mind. And then I discovered this book, The Hidden Life of Trees, which if you haven't read, I highly recommend it. I was just astounded by some of the things that I learned about it. It's by a German forester named Peter Wohlleben, and it's a New York Times bestseller, so maybe a lot of you have read it. But it truly is about the hidden life of trees. You know, normally we look at trees and we admire them for their beauty and their, full canopies and their trunks, but there's a life, underground that we tend to forget about. And I love this image of the roots looking like they're shaking hands. And so, in school we learn about photosynthesis and how trees collect sunlight and turn that into sugar. But I didn't really realize that there was an underground network of fungi that work with the trees. So the trees collect the sunlight, turn it into sugar, and share that with the fungi. And then the fungi collect nutrients and minerals from the soil and share that with the trees. So there's this trading network and communication going on called the Wood Wide Web. And here's another image to show how the forest trees are cooperating through these fungi, these fungal networks called mycorrhizal fungi. And one of the really exciting things that I discovered was that in the book, there was this ancient stump, I don't know, thousands of years old or something like that. And it was actually still alive because it was being fed nutrients by the surrounding trees, which is a pretty amazing thing. And so I have this sort of snaggy stump in my neighborhood that I noticed while walking Maple, and you can see that it's fallen over, but it's very much alive. There's all this growth, and I took a more recent picture of it where you can see how it's kind of leafing out. So it's sort of amazing to think about what's going on underground, sort of invisible to our eyes, but there's still life there. And so I was also inspired by Indigenous botanist and scientist Robin Wall Kimmerer, because she talks about how nature can be our teacher, how we can learn from plants and animals. And I love this quote from a lecture that I heard her give called "Gratitude is a Radical Act," because really it's a very, first of all, a very anti-consumerist statement, because if we're grateful for what we have, we don't have to have more and more and more. But it's also about being grateful for the earth and the trees and the creatures that live among us, and how we need to really be environmental stewards and protect them. So I had all these things in mind when I was, being depressed about the trees in my old neighborhood in Virginia being cut, learning all this fascinating science, and I wanted to tell a poetic story. So this is kind of, I would say, a call to action as well as a love letter to trees. So now I'm going to read Be a Tree, written by me and illustrated by Felicita Sala, and you're going to see Felicia's gorgeous art up close. So Be a Tree, and these are the beautiful end papers. Be a tree, stand tall, stretch your branches to the sun. Let your roots curl, coil in the soil to ground you. Your spine is a trunk, giving you shape, holding your crown, channeling your food. Your skin is bark, dead on the outside, protecting what's within. Beneath your bark are layers such as sapwood, carrying nutrients to help you grow bigger and taller, and heartwood, strong as bone to support you. In your heart's center is your pith, keeper of nutrients we need for sapling. High above, your crown may be round, weeping, pyramidal, broad. Let it spread, shine overhead, collecting dust, collecting sun, filtering dust, shading your roots on hot days. Wave your leaves in the wind, breathe in air, drink in sun, let them fuel you and the world. See yourself, branches and leaves above, roots below, trunk in between. You are a tree. And now look all around you. You are not alone. You are one of many trees. Our roots twine with fungi, joining all trees in the forest together. We talk, share food, store water, divide resources, alert each other to danger. A wood wide web of information. Together, a forest of trees is strong. We purify the air. We anchor the soil, preventing erosion. Our dome of joined crowns swings and straightens, slowing high winds. Our bodies and branches and roots are homes to birds and mammals and insects. We sustain ecosystems. Immigrant trees, away from their native habitats, are vulnerable. But together, a forest of trees is strong. Mother trees nurse young trees. Old trees shade new trees. Strong trees shelter weak trees. Healthy trees help sick trees. A family, a community, a country, a cosmos. There is enough for all. So be a tree, for together we are a forest. And there are ways that you can help save trees and how you can be a forest in your community, and the beautiful anatomy of the tree image that Felicita made, and on papers. I think I have one more. Oops, let me go back. So, once this curtain unfolds here. So I have these wonderful Be a Tree classroom and outdoor activities. This kit created by the fabulous Kirsten Cappy of Curiosity. If you don't know her site, definitely check it out. And friends, there are art activities, drawing your hidden roots, yoga, STEM, STEMpathy and social action, and outdoor story time. So it's pandemic friendly as well. You can create a wood wide web out of yarn, which is very cool. So eventually these will be on my website, but right now, if you're on Instagram, if you go to Penny and Jelly, that's my Instagram name there, and look under the profile, you'll see where you can download it, or you can download it at Curious City. And so that's it. Maple says, hug a tree. So I'm going to stop my screen share and leave it to Felicita to talk about the art. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Unmute. Yeah. So I don't know if it's of any curiosity to you about how I made this book, but on a more technical note, but it was made with I do everything by hand, so it's I don't use computer to work on my illustrations, so it's all traditional media. So I use watercolors and colored pencils. And it took a few months to make, so every spread would take a few days to make, because there's lots of layers over the top. But it was just it was lots of fun, especially because every spread was completely different. It was trees, and you imagine a book about trees all being kind of brown and green, but apart from the kind of a little bit of abstraction involved, but there's just such a huge variety of trees, and it was really fun to research that and to see how many different I was looking for more variety of trees to make it quite different, and to respond to the text, you know, that's talking about spine and trunk and bark and wind and how to respond to that visually. So that was a lot of fun to do, and I think that one of the most striking trees, I think, in the book is the one that's under the jacket that's also inside the book, which is this. Is this one, which is an actual, I mean, this is like a slight exaggeration of a tree that is actually in real life it's more beautiful and majestic, because of course it's real, but it's you know, in terms of color, but this is a Morton Bay Fig, which I don't know if in the States you have these trees, but in Australia there's quite a few. I don't know originally where it's from, if it's a native tree to Australia or not. I'm not an expert. I do have to read that book by the German forest guy, because I looked it up when you, I think somebody, maybe the publisher, told me about this book, and I have it in my to read. It's one of my favorite trees, and you can get lost in the branches, and that's the tree that people used to quite comment on quite a bit. And the front cover tree is really a kind of made up. It's a made up tree. It's based on, you know, I suppose oaks, but it was more, the point here was just to show a certain structure that would permit, you know, the title and the children. And it was really nice to incorporate that human element for me, because it was otherwise it would just be a kind of book about botany, wouldn't it? And this one was, it has to be interesting also for children to see themselves there. And yeah, I have a little tutorial about how I drew this particular tree, but it's just a very simple one that you can just do at home with colored pencils. I don't know if any of you like to draw in this time where you're kind of stuck at home, and might be fun for you to watch. So I don't know if we want to play that, Elise. Do you want to see?
Yes, I'd love to see.
Thumbs up if you do. I reckon we could play this. I might be fun to watch instead of, you know, watching me blab on in front of the camera.
All right, and we're going with the advanced one, correct?
Let's get the third one. It's a bit more interesting because it's the cover.
Okay. Let me get my screen share up here. With the sound. Alrighty. And here we go.
The next tree we're going to draw is based on the tree on the front cover of the book, which is a kind of oak tree. And we're going to learn how to do all these squiggly lines and tree textures that you can see on the front. And we're going to need a piece of paper in portrait mode, and I'm going to use a brown pencil, nice dark brown. And we're going to start with the trunk. I made a really wide trunk for this one. And then it's quite a short trunk, it's just wider than it is longer. And from there we're going to do some really squiggly branches, because oak trees have nice squiggly branches. And as you can see, it's not a realistic tree, it's kind of a little bit imagined. And I'm going a bit quicker here, and just to show you how I did all those squiggly branches, and they can go right up to the top. And we're going to do a bit of grass on this one too, yellow grass like the one on the front cover. I like this golden yellow colour. Gives it a very warm feel. And now we're going to start with the line. So this takes a long time and a lot of patience. And you can really do these lines from any point on the tree. You can split up the tree into sections like I did. And then the best part is doing these kind of circle textures inside the bark. Some of them might be holes where animals are hiding, like in this one. We're going to draw a little creature in here. I don't really know what this creature is. It's maybe a raccoon or an owl, or a mixture of the two. And then colouring the background black because it's dark in there. It's nice and cozy. And going to keep going with these lines all the way down through the tree, and it gives a really nice texture, doesn't it? What I did for the front cover is I first coloured it all in with watercolour, a nice brown, and then went over it with coloured pencils to create this texture. So you can also do that, make a nice flat colour at the bottom, and then once it's really dry you go over it with coloured pencils to make this texture. Going really fast here. And now we're going to start on the leaves. For this one we're just going to make a kind of flat colour all around the back of the branches. And I'm going really fast because this actually takes a really long time, but we don't want to be here all night watching me colour in. So you can pause this video and do your own colouring in. And then you can also take a break and maybe draw in a nice bird, a nice big bird sitting on a branch, and then colour around it and leave that white space as the bird. And then I'm going to use different coloured pencils, similar tone, to create a bit more depth and just interesting effects. And you can just go wild here. And then you can do sort of nut shapes with darker pencils, or fruits. There's like a party going on this tree. You can add characters, and then I go over the pencils with a bit of yellow just to give it a bit of warmth. And then I like to add some blue on the bird just to make him pop out a bit more. This is a really big bird. Colour in our little creature here as well. We'll call him Tony. Tony in the tree. And now I'll show you how to make the roots. So the roots are the same shape as the branches really, but upside down. And you can really have fun making lots of twirly shapes here. And they can cross over into each other. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then you colour in the space between the roots with black, the nice black earth. I'm going to go really quickly here, and you can put little kind of colourful dots and specks and fungi in here. Interesting effects, just like you did at the top, and then keep colouring in. I'm going to show you the finished root effect because it takes too long. And now you can draw a little character next to your tree, yourself or a friend, pointing up at the tree, saying, hey, look at that creature up there. What is it? Is it a raccoon or an owl? It's Tony, our friend Tony. Little smiley face, curly hair. And this is a chance to add a bit of colour, which is what I did on the front cover. I did lots of children with colourful clothes. They look a bit like confetti on the tree. That was fun. And there you go. There's your finished tree. Hello everyone, how are you?
That was introductory. I think we'll probably I don't know if Elise want to put these. There's 3 videos. There was an introduction, but I did it myself here, so it wasn't really necessary. And there was a simple tree tutorials. So I didn't know if there was going to be lots of children joining in, but you can, you know, if you have children or know someone, you can get them to watch, or you can do it yourself. I think it's always fun to follow a drawing tutorial. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if Maria, back to you if we want to do questions or.
That was, first of all, that was beautiful. I think somebody wrote in the chat, hypnotizing. I was very mesmerized by what I love about your art is just that sort of dynamic, flowing, organic quality, and it's just lends itself very well to trees and.
Yeah, I think the pencils lend themselves to that because that texture, and there's a very like childish quality to pencils, and also the fact of drawing trees with pencils really brings you back to your own childhood, doesn't it? When you're kind of scrubbing in those trees with your colored pencils. I find that very
process. So did you do like watercolor first and then colored pencil over it? Is that what the process was for?
Yeah. So there's a lot of layers. So there's a lot of layers of watercolors, and then where I get the right gradient, and then I go over all the kind of like heavier color is given with colored pencils. So on the cover, you see, if you see the tree on the cover, that dark layer is all watercolor, and then I just put pencils on top for the lines, whereas for the leaves there's a lot more pencil texture. So it's a mixture of both. I just kind of improvise. I don't really know what I'm doing until it's done. Most of the time I'm just in a bit of a state of anxiety until it's finished, because I don't know how it's going to turn out. That cover was actually a second cover that I did. The first one was much more brown, like the version, it was like a golden crown, and then with the publisher we decided to go with more of a green, which I think is a good choice. So yeah, that's it. That's my contribution to this book.
I just want to show one thing before we open it up to questions. So you might not have gotten an appreciation when I was reading it on the screen share, but this thing is called a gatefold. So it opens up to, I don't know if you guys can see that, probably not very well, but it's just, I mean, the art is just very beautiful, but I was so delighted to have, it's the first gatefold that I've had in any of my books. And
That was my first gatefold too. I was like, I wonder if I can get away with this.
Yeah, I think it's kind of expensive to produce. So sometimes, so we were
Yeah, the printing cost went up, but I think it was worth it because they're having that element of surprise at the end.
Yeah,
Mm.
for sure. So I don't know, Elise, do you want to moderate any questions in case anybody has any questions for us?
Sure, I can certainly do that. I haven't seen anything in chat so far. So if anybody has any questions, if you aren't able to unmute yourself to ask yourselves, you can go ahead and put it into chat and I can iterate to the authors in Illustrator.
Marty has a question.
Felicita,
Yes.
this is Peggy Sherwood.
Hi, Peggy.
Hi, beautiful, beautiful book, both the written and the illustrations. Did you always want to be an illustrator, or how did you get into doing that?
I think I always wanted to be one, but I didn't know that I did. Because I didn't go to art school. I studied philosophy in the University of Western Australia, where I grew up, and I just never thought it was like to live as an artist was like a too great a luxury. I never thought it was like, you know, I want to be a famous writer or a famous singer. It's just like, no, that's not even something to consider. But then at the time, I didn't really know that illustration existed as an art form. I mean, I always just thought children's books, you know, like Spot the Dog, and it was just things for children. I didn't think there was a person behind them, and you know, that with a process. And I was more interested in painting. And then it was when I moved back to Europe that I discovered a certain type of picture book, a more artistic form of picture book making that really got me interested in the art form. And I was already graduated from university, so then it was after that, it was meeting illustrators and people who worked in the field that I thought, oh, this is something that I think I could do. And then I tried to get into that world by, you know, going to book fairs and talking to publishers, and it was hard. It was like, I want to publish a book, you know, it's not that easy. And then eventually I think I started to get noticed here and there, and started to, you know, it was like a gradual process. But it wasn't until, yeah, a bit later in life, I suppose, that I realized that that's what I wanted to do. Yeah.
I think it's one more. I think it's interesting. Maria mentioned this at one of her other talks that I went to, that you know, it's a real partnership between the illustrator and the writer, and I guess it's up to the editor that connects you or finds the right illustrator for the prose.
Yeah, that's usually how it works, but in this case, our agents work together.
Oh,
so they did a co-agented pitch with the manuscript and some of Felicia's illustrations. So it was a little bit different in this. Yeah. But normally that's how it works when someone like me, who's just a writer, not an illustrator, once the editor acquires the manuscript, then they look for an illustrator. So yeah, a little bit different in this case.
Yeah, very nice. Congratulations to you.
Maria has a question. My friend Maria. Hi, Maria.
Oh, it's such a beautiful book. So beautiful. Thank you to you both for it. And I wonder, in that process, Felicita, you said that you don't know what you're doing until you're kind of doing it, which I think is just great advice for life. But did you and Maria collaborate at all, or did you talk to her at all? Or was it sort of you sat with her words and sort of and worked through that more? I'm just wondering about that collaborative process.
No, we didn't talk until after the book was made. I think, Maria, because I get confused with which project I talked to the author with and some I didn't. And most of the time I don't talk to the author for some reason. I don't know. And it's not because there's anything against it. I think the author backs away at the beginning. I found most authors I work with do this. They kind of back away. They don't say anything. Maybe they talk to the publisher and they'll say, I think I have this idea. Maybe the publisher will communicate that to me, but I think it's good not to create, I don't know, it's like they don't want to influence too much with their ideas, which I find, in fact, I think it's nice to have that collaborative process. I think it depends who you work with, you know. So there's a book I made with a dear friend of mine who's a writer in Italy. She won the Anderson Prize in Italy, and we're good friends, and she writes really well. And so we decided to do a book together. We had the pitch, and so that was collaborative. But even there, she never told me what she thought would go in the pictures. Like I would never tell the writer what I think if I think they should change the text, or, you know,
Right. Okay.
just, you know, you respect each other's work. And then, but if the writer, for example, has some ideas, for example, I don't know if it was you, Maria, who mentioned something about, I don't know if you mentioned something in the notes. I don't remember if that was you, but if they do, I find that really helpful, because in the end, I'm always going to decide how to form the composition. And, you know, this, you know, they can give you a little bit of ideas of how they came up with the story. I find that really interesting when they, and then usually we have a communication after the book is made. But I'm not against communicating at all. That's just the way it happens, I find, with most author, illustrator, even other people I heard. That's how it works.
I think it's kind of an unwritten rule that you give space, sort of. And I think when unless there's sort of, for example, scientific detail or something that needs to be explicit, those kinds of things, then you might give some sort of direction in that respect, but really otherwise to just let the illustrator bring their vision. The book.
Maria, when you write, do you think in images, or is it more the words at this point? Because you're doing this.
When I write, yeah, I think I am sort of seeing, of course, I mean, when I found out Felicita was going to illustrate the book, I had been a long time fan of her art anyway, so I knew it was going to be beautiful, but still I was just surprised because it was so, you know, just all the things she came up with. Like, I love the tattoo of the man in the
yeah, that was a great detail.
Yeah. So I do think visually, but of course I'm, you know, nothing like what it ends up being.
Right.
More beautiful than I can ever imagine.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
I think I saw a question from Kevin pop up in the chat. My friend Kevin, who's an illustrator, he was asking about the brand of pencils.
Oh, good question. It's so I used two main types of pencils. The first one is if you can see it. Maybe I'll write it in the chat. But the first one is a Faber-Castell Polychromos, which is like your kind of basic professional brand, I suppose. It's a bit more. And then the second one, which is my absolute favorite pencil, but it's costing me a fortune, I tell you. It's the Caran d'Ache, which is a French company, but you can find it worldwide. Caran d'Ache Luminance, and these are very, very soft pastel-y pencil, but not pastel, and they are just incredible. And I regret the day that my friend told me about these, because I have a little box with all the pencil stubs. I have like a pencil extender for when they get really small, because you don't want to waste, you know, that precious pencil. It's a pencil extender, so you can, you know, keep using. And I have a little box full of these little pencil stubs, and once I counted them, and I thought, oh my god, that's like so much money into those pencils. That's how expensive they are. But you know, I buy them gradually over time, and it's a good investment. I only buy the particular colors that I know that I work with, not the whole box. And never buy the whole box set of pencils. Just go with the ones that you like. That's my tip.
Anyone else have a question? Or comment? Or I can't read. I don't have the chat up, so I don't really know what's going on there.
I guess I didn't hit unmute there for a moment. Andrea Wong was asking, what are your favorite trees?
Felicita, do you want to go first? What's your favorite tree?
Yeah, so as I was saying before about the connection to clay, so I have two favorite trees. The first one is, I don't have photos here, but I'll show you in the book, is these crowns are taken from, I think they're called maritime pines, so pine trees. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Italy, in the Rome region especially, there's these really tall pine trees that have this kind of flat crown at the top. They're very popular in this region, and they just remind me of my childhood, because there's always, every park that you go to, you have these pine trees, and then you can find pine nuts at the bottom, and when the leaves fall, because they're evergreens, but some, you know, the leaves change, and we used to build forts with all these kind of large amounts of pine needles and put blankets over them and get, you know, pricked with them. And then the second one is this one. This is a white gum tree, so it's a variety of eucalyptus tree, and there's lots of different types of eucalyptus trees that have this. This one has a really soft bark that kind of peels off, and it's very very soft. You can press into it, feels a bit gummy, and it really has these folds in it that look like human skin, and it's quite fascinating. And I love these gum trees because they remind me of Australia, obviously. And when I find eucalyptus trees here, you don't find these types here in Italy, but you find, you know, varieties of gum trees. I'm always ripping off the leaves and scrunching them up and smelling them because they remind me of home. So they're very much connected to memory. But I would love to come to the, you know, America and see those the giant sequoias and the redwood forest. I think I would love to be. I think it's like my spirit land, those trees. Maybe one day.
Yeah, when we went there in 2010, it was just also the ferns. They're as ancient as the trees. It's amazing. The whole ecosystem is incredible. So I love those trees, and just simple trees like white pines. I love the smell of them, and I love the carpet of rusty needles in the forest that it creates. And also, actually, speaking of eucalyptus, we lived in California for a year, so that the smell of eucalyptus reminds me of our time in California. And yeah, I don't know. I just love all different kinds of trees.
Inez is asking, is cauliflower edible, and that it looks like a mushroom?
Cauliflower is, I think that's just the name for the formation because it's growing out of the trunk. That was a redbud tree. I don't actually know if those are edible. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. But there are fungi, obviously, that are edible, but probably not the mycorrhizal type.
Can it grow on any kind of?
I just love the word. I just thought it was cool.
Can it grow on any kind of tree, Maria? Or can?
I think it can grow on
one
different kinds of trees. I'm not really sure. When I saw that particular tree, I was just really amazed because it was all over the trunk and it was so beautiful. And
yeah, it's very cool.
I found that word, and, oh, that's really cool. And it does look like cauliflower too. So.
Okay. Lori Thompson is asking, what are each of you working on now or next?
Would you like to go first, Felicita?
Okay, I'm working on a book called Dark on Light by Diane White, and it's a sequel to not really a sequel, but it's in the same line of this book that I made called Green on Green. Don't know if you know it, Maria. This one by and it's a similar because it's a rhyming text, very short text, and this one takes you through a year in the seasons. And instead, this next one is about a night, so the changing light and these kids going out on an expedition in the forest surrounding their house, and then they come back home with their dog, where they find their dog. But it's all about changing nature and light. It's very beautifully written. And then I'm also working. I've got two stories going on at the same time. That's why I'm very frazzled, because I don't normally work on two books at the same time. The second one is, where is it? Oh, it's I'm just gonna push this book because it's one of my favorite books. But I don't know if you can find it in the States because it's an Australian publication. I don't know if they distribute. It's called Your Birthday Was the Best. And it's a story of a little cockroach that invites himself to a birthday party. And he's very enthusiastic, and he thinks he's friends with the boy, and he just appears everywhere on his birthday presents and just wants to play with him. And the boy's absolutely terrified, but the cockroach is just completely unaware. And it's really funny. And this one was written by Maggie Hutchins, and we're working on the second title where he goes to his school and hides in the teacher's lunchbox. And and so this is actually a really nice change from these, I suppose, not more serious, but more like these books are very are absolutely wonderful to make, but they take a lot of kind of energy and involvement because the spreads are very complex, and this one's more kind of lighthearted. So it'll be fun to work on the second cockroach, and that's what I'm working on at the moment. Maria, over to you.
Well, I was just doing some edits for a couple of books that are coming out next year. I have a book with Bagram Ebatouline on bobcats called Bobcat Prowling, and our dog Maple spotted a bobcat in our yard a couple weeks ago, so that was very exciting. and another book of poems called Ice Cycle, which is going to be coming out in 2022. And I have a book with Pete Oswald coming out next year called Being a Dog, A Tale of Mindfulness. And then I'm just working on other projects, like a companion to that book called Being a Cat. I just finished a draft of, and I'm waiting to hear back from the editor and hoping she doesn't hate it. Just I've kind of been busy more with promotional stuff in the last couple of weeks. So I've been wanting to get back to some projects that I had to kind of put on hold. One on a topic that I love to write about, birds, on birding. So hoping to get back to that soon. That's about it. Any other questions or?
That was all the questions in the chat. A couple of them were, I think at least 2 of them were something that you guys had already answered. So yeah. If anybody else has any questions, then go ahead now. Otherwise, I think that's it. Or
Well, thank you all so much for coming. Really appreciate it. Taking time out of your Sunday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are, or morning.
Maria Gianferrari.
Also, I think Diane White's in the group, the writer I was talking about. Hi, Diane.
Yes, I saw her name pop up there. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw you. Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm working on your text next. Working hard. It's really fun to do. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for coming. So grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you both. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Ciao, Felicita.
That's my
Ciao Roberta, come stai?
Stai? Sta bene? Sei sta bene? Yeah. What did I say now?
I unmuted for a second. Say a
Oh.
few words, Roberta.
What do I say?
Say thank you, and you
I
had a
did
great
say
time.
see you tomorrow. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao,
Ciao.
Felicita.
Bye everyone. Thanks for coming.
Love you, Maria.
Yeah.
Good luck
Bye,
with
Maria.
everything over there.
Bye.
Hi there, you look like you work here. Yes.